So I decided to give it a try doing a jelly roll race and hope to make it into some placemats. These are jelly roll pieces that were given to me, so they're in random sizes or lengths. The widths are all 2.5, give or take a bit. And I've cut down some squares I had into 2.5 inches. So I thought what I'd do is just sew them in between. I'm not going to do an angle stitching line because that'll eat up too much fabric. So all I'm going to do is just do these as a 1/4 inch seam like this here, and keep joining them together, and we'll see how this turns out. So I'm just going to sew and let's see how this goes. So I'm not going to be picky about what colors are going with what. I'll just grab shorts, long, whatever I want. Jelly roll races are all about being random. So the more that you can add to it, it gives it a bit of a different look. It makes it very, they can turn out to be very pleasing. So I did a quilt once and it turned out really well. So I was kind of happy with that. That got donated about 2 years ago. So I hope the person is very happy with it. It's the first time I've done this as placemats. So I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. Now I'm going to be getting into some of the longer strips here. And where's the end? I'm not pressing, and I'm not being particular about whether the selvages are still on or not, because I'll make sure that they get buried in the seam allowance. And I'd really like to hear from people if there's things that you would like to see being done. Just leave me a comment and I will certainly try to put something together. I am not a long, I've been sewing for many years, but I haven't been doing non-clothing items for a very long time, maybe a couple of years. So I'm kind of learning as well. And when I used to work for a living, I would teach people how to do certain tasks. So I'm used to showing people how to do things. I'm just a bit rusty on how to do it. I was going to offer my husband, I had offered him lessons on how to sew, but he decided he wouldn't be interested at this time. He's got a very good sense of design, and I thought his creativity would come out in that, but he's not interested. He's still working full-time, so I'll give him a break on that. I've taken off the sew guide because you see here I have a selvage, and I want to make sure that that's not being included. So the sew guide isn't going to work, so I'm just going to use the edge of the foot. So I'd be also interested to hear what kind of projects people like to work on. Stuff like this I like to do because sometimes my mind just needs to purge a little bit. I kind of overthink things, and sometimes I have too many plans and it becomes overwhelming. So doing something like this is very free spirit, and it's not something I'm used to doing. So it's kind of liberating to be able to just kind of throw something together and not have a plan on how it's going to turn out. Normally I would have this all drawn on graph paper and figured out sizes and everything, but I'm not doing it this way. So I will just continue sewing. It's a bit narrower, but I'll make it work. And one of the quilting groups I belong to, we we like to, it's totally optional, make placemats, and they get donated to our local community kitchen. And part of the community kitchen includes a program for seniors or people that can't leave their homes. That's called Meals on Wheels. And what they decided to do is to help the people out is to give each recipient, when they first start in the program, they get a placemat. So it's a way of them making their home feel a little bit more loved by having a homemade gift of placemats. And gee, I don't know how many myself I've done. Our goal was to try and do 200, and I think we reached that a couple weeks ago, but I'm just going to keep making them because, as I said, it's just a good way to cleanse, try new designs, and also use up some scraps. I like to pick up a lot of fabric from the free table in our quilt group, so that's where this has come from. And sometimes I'm going, I can't believe people don't want certain fabric, but that's totally their call. So if you're looking for a way to expand your fabric collection, joining a quilt group is a terrific way to do it. Some of them are online and some of them are in person, so whatever works for you. There's Facebook groups where people have scrap exchanges. I belong in a couple of those. Those are kind of fun. If you don't know what you're going to get in the mail from somebody and what their taste is like. Okay, so I've come to the end here. And now what I need to do is I cut off a section and then I join it together. What I'm going to do is just pause this for a minute and figure out how I want this to go. So when I took a break, what I did is I figured out where the two ends are. I made sure one started with a block and the other one doesn't. And now we're going to stitch the whole length together, right sides together. And this is when a 1/4 inch foot is really helpful, or to have a guide. I should put my foot on, but I don't want to today, so I'm just gonna freewheel it. So this is gonna take a bit to do. I'm just gonna give a keeper stitch just to keep it locked. And wherever there's a join, they're not pressed, and I know through the machine it's going to actually force it to go one way or another, so I'm not going to be overly concerned about that. Once we get a couple lengths, then we'll take it over to the iron and give it a press. And there we go. This will take a while. Pulling on the fabric, I'm just letting it go on its own, and I'm just kind of directing it to make sure that it's not going crooked. So you see when it goes over the seam how it forced it to go one way. And I'm just laying it again. make sure it's not getting twisted as I'm going along. Just going to keep getting cut anyway. So who knows how it'll end up. I know it's going to be nice anyway. So this is a good way to use up your own jelly roll, or some people actually buy them and do this as well. They make it. Doing this makes a great gift. As I said, these are going to be placemats, but you can do it to make a blanket. A nice baby quilt in different juvenile prints would be cute. Let's see, I got some thread here. Getting caught up. There we go. I have a bucket under my desk here that's all 2.5-inch scraps, and I use most of them for binding, but I'll be consuming some of them because I'm doing an exchange where we're needing 2.5-inch pieces, so that's one of my things to do in the next week or so. I don't really get into trimming pieces down and storing them that way. Sometimes if I'm in the mood I will, but most of the time I don't. If I've got them left over, then I sort them by color, or if they are in a shape, then they get stored by shape. And hats off to anybody that goes through and trims them all down to standard sizes. That's beyond my patience to do that. Okay, see here, we're at the end. So I'm going to stitch it all the way to the end, and then you'll see what happens. So before we get there, I'm just going to pull it tight and give it a quick snip. And that's done. So now what we have is we actually have 2 widths. Except, okay, how come someone didn't tell me I was out of bobbin thread like a gazillion, practically near the beginning? So I'll put this on pause, I'll resew it, and I'll be back with you in a few minutes. Okay, so I got that fixed, and I decided to put my 1/4-inch foot on, which is not a true 1/4-inch, but for this it doesn't really matter. So now I've gone and I've sewn the whole strip. I'm taking the ends, I'm matching them up, and then we'll do another run. This is pretty much how the jelly roll race goes. You just keep going to the end, rejoining, going to the end until you're the desired size that you want. It's kind of neat because of the random pattern that you end up with, which I mentioned before. It's nice to just have that break. You do have to keep making sure that the previously stitched lines are staying open, because you can accidentally sew the wrong part. And I've had that happen before. So see how last time it forced it to go this way? So I'm going to use my stiletto to make sure that it continues doing that, so I don't get a twisted seam. And I'm sorry if my hand keeps getting in the way. I'm still trying to figure out how to get the best views when I'm sewing. I don't really have a large workspace, so it's hard to set up for filming things. And I've got my machine set at half speed. I have tried full speed, and it's outside my comfort zone right now. I haven't had this machine for very long, and it is very fast and very reliable. So I'm quite happy with it. And I do like how easy it is to switch over between processes, meaning I like to do free motion quilting, or I'm using a walking foot for some things, and it's very easy to switch that over. But I did lose a screw that I need for something. Okay, here we are. We're almost at the end again. So I will sew that. Then what we're going to do is cut at the end here, which I probably should have done before I stitch to the end. Go this way. There we go. So now we open this up, and we're now 5 wide or 4 wide. See how it's making the pattern all random? So now I need to make sure that I have the end and have all the fabric opening up. And see how it's getting shorter as well as we go. So you want to make sure you're putting the correct right sides together on this, so that it doesn't get all twisted up. And now we get to carry on again. We're at the end again. So got scissors, semi-flat, and then I'm going to be cutting again here. I always feel like I'm a hack when I'm doing it like this, but okay, so now we are 8 strips across. So I need to measure this 16. Okay, so I could leave it here, but what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep on going because I want to see, maybe do one more length, and then I can start cutting this down into placemats, or figure out if I want to cut it and piece it together. See, this is only how long it's going to be, and it's going to be twice as wide again. So it's hard to believe how this all comes together. That I'm actually making fabric. And there we are, we're almost at the end of it. And again, at the end, so we'll need to cut here. If you didn't want to cut like this, you could certainly put it on your cutting mat and take a ruler and just take a little amount off and do it that way, which would make it a lot more square. And then when we open it up, look at how big that is. Okay, I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna figure out what I want to do. I'm going to press the seams, and then I'll get back to you. Have a great evening. Bye. So continuing on with our jelly roll race placemats is what we're making. I ended up with a fairly large piece of fabric that is approximately 18 by 31. I'd like to make placemats around 12 by 16 to 12 by 17. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half, or actually in thirds, a little bit more than thirds. So just around the 12.5-inch mark here will give me one. So it's going to be one. I'm not being too particular about where this last seam goes, because by the time you get the binding on, you're just going to see a hair of it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So put that one aside. And then on the second, I'll line it up and I'll make it just over 12 again. And again, just, you know, not being super picky here, but making about 12.5. And then the width, I'll square up once it's all quilted. So my blade is getting a bit wonky, so I'll cut it twice. A few seams here. Okay, there we go. And I've got this nice extra piece left over that'll go into my bucket. And what I'll do is I'll take pieces of those and make something else. So that I'll do in another video. So what I've got now is a piece that's a 12.5, and it's about 17.5. So this will get squared up once we're all finished. So what I decided to do is I took a look at where these squares ended up in the finished product. So I've got one here, and one down here. And this would work just as it is. So, you know, this would make a perfect placemat. My husband said, hey, that's nice. Why don't you just leave it like that? Well, because I always like to add my own twist to things, this part totally optional. I've got some old 2.5 inch strips from something else, leftover binding. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slice this way, and I'm just going to add this just as a decoration piece. And then on the other one, I'm going to actually add the dark green, and again, just as a decoration piece. So what we'll do is, I'm swinging around. I like to just, again, be aware of where these designer blocks are, so I don't end up with a funny little bit. And I'm going to line up the rules where the stitching lines are, because that'll be the most square. Figure out where I want to slice it. You want to do it graphically in around thirds. So because this is 17 a bit, it can take a 5 to 6 inch slice. And so I'm going to cut it here. There we go. And if you really, really wanted to be, do something different, you could turn it around again to give it even some more. So this, which used to be joined here, is now opposite. I might actually go with that. And I'm going to add the dark green stripe in here. And these are 2 extra jelly roll strips that they don't match 100%, but it kind of goes with the flavor of this being scrappy. So I'm going to sew that one together. And then on the other one, I'm going to slice it. Let's just put that out of the way for now. I'm going to slice this one. Let's see, we've got blocks here, here, and here. And you have to be careful about where your seams are going to end up. So this one I might end up just doing down on the side here like a racing stripe. So keep in mind that when you do this, you're actually making your product another 2.5 inches wider as well. So in the end, you're going to end up cutting off or trimming down to make it narrower, unless you want a supersized placemat, and you could do that as well. I kind of like ones that are a little bit larger because then more things fit on it on the table. If you want to be really picky, you can see the size here, here, and here. They're all about the same. So visually, you want to maybe keep that pattern. So I've got it lined up. And I'm going to carefully slice this apart. So when this gets sewn up, it's going to have this piece in the center. And visually, I just like that for a change. So let me sew that up and I'll be right back. So here they are stitched up. What I did is I tried to pay attention to how these horizontal lines matched up from one side to the other. And one way to do that is when you're pinning it, you can actually draw. If you're going to add this one, sorry about that, I should fix that. If you've got it like this and you want to sew this one over, what I do is I actually take a ruler and I'll make a mark on side of the part I'm joining to. And then when I go to pin it, I make sure that they're all lined up. This one, it's kind of hard to see. So that's what that one looks like. And this is what this one with the lighter stripe looks like. And again, I used a friction pen. So when I pressed it, the marks came out. But again, I marked it along where the seam was on this side, and then I pinned it and it all matched up. So I'm very pleased with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back them up with some extra batting that I have. I've got lots of backing material. For backing, you can use scraps again, so you can have another type of placemat on the back side if you want. I've used extra pillowcases. They're a perfect size to make a couple placemat backings. Any kind of scraps, really. They don't even have to be cotton if they're going to be a placemat. Whatever you want to use, just make sure that your thread and needle are appropriate for the different fabric types that you're using. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sandwich these. I'm going to I like to use a walking foot when I do stuff like this because it goes fairly quickly. So I'll show you once they're all made up. Thank you. Okay, in the end, I decided to do free motion quilting. And what I did is I went and I found an old pattern or style that I thought would be kind of cool. It was actually online. And I took a class, about 2 years ago by Zoom. And what I was taught is that you need to practice with a pencil, or you could do it without thread in your machine and practice that way. I just do it with a pencil and paper. And you basically just practice your loops until you're happy with how they're flowing. And what happens is you're training your brain to make certain moves. So once you do that for a little bit and get comfortable with it, then you can move to your machine. Every machine is different. Mine I've set up with 0 stitch length. The feed dogs are still need to be down because it's free motion quilting. I've adjusted my pressure foot, my tension. I've put a type of glide thread in that I like to use when I'm free motion quilting. It just works really well. And I actually buy pre-wound bobbins that are a bottom weight thread for my machine, and they work really well. Before I dive in, I actually do a test on a little swatch of batting with fabric, and these are cutoffs that I keep near my machine in a bag. And whenever I'm trying something new, I like to do it just to make sure everything's set right. And my layering, because this is small, I actually didn't pin it or glue it. I'm just gonna freewheel it. I did one already and it turned out quite well. So we have our top layer facing right side up, our batting, and then I have a backing which is right side facing down. So that's called a quilt sandwich. You've probably heard that many times before. So now I'm just going to start in the center. And what you want to do is you want to work in the center and work your way out, because that keeps the batting from puckering. So here we go. It might get a bit noisy, so sorry about that. So I just take a few stitches just to kind of anchor it, and then I start going. I need to reposition my hands, which is one thing I don't always do as well as I should. My gloves are just gardening gloves that I bought like a 10 or 12 pack of them at Costco 2 years ago. They have the non-grippies. I also have a pair where I've cut off the fingertips. So when I'm doing other kind of quilting, it's easier to change things around. So, you know me, I'm all about doing things multi-purpose. Okay, here we go. done one row, and I'm going to continue doing this. So give it a try at home. It's really not that hard to do. Practice makes perfect, as they say. Okay, so now I finished up the free motion quilting, and I actually decided to do this in the end because it's really fast. If I'd done it with a walking foot, yes, it can be fast as well, but then I tend to want to add a lot of design features to it, and that would have slowed me down. I actually need to get these finished up because our next meeting is tomorrow, and I'd like to get these bound and hand them off at that time. So this is the one with the kind of beigey stripe that's been added. And again, that was a 2.5 inch strip. And then here's the one with the dark green. And I really, really like how the free motion quilting just kind of pops. If someone doesn't want to use it because it's not near Christmas time, there's just a plain kind of wheat general pattern fabric on the back, so that can be used pretty much all year round. So this on the back and this on the front. So I'm going to trim these up and bind them. I'll show you what they finally look at, and then it's all done. So it's very easy to see what you can make using jelly roll scrap strips. Use your imagination, and please let me know what you think. I always like to hear from people, and if you don't want to comment, then please send me an email. Thank you. So here we go, the finished placemats made from various lengths of jelly rolls and made from a jelly roll race type of method. I've used scrappy fabric for the binding, so some of them are a little bit pieced together, but I think it just adds to the whole style. So all the quilting was done free motion, and I had a lot of fun doing it and trying my techniques. So this is the first one where we put the cream colored stripe in it. This is the second one where we have the green, and again you can see the color where we added those in just to break it up a little bit. And then this is a third bonus one where it was an unfinished block from a quilt guild that someone had put on the give me table. So I took it, pieced it together, and decided to make it as well. So I hope you learned something today. Please hit that like, subscribe, and let me know if there's any other videos you want. Have a great day. Thank you.